I would like to take this opportunity to welcome to our podium, our Watch Night stage, the master and mistress or missus of ceremony for this evening, Mr. Paul Quinn and Tavia Hunt. Let's give them a round of applause, please.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, our distinguished guests.
Good evening, brothers and sisters. Welcome to Emancipation Watch Night, 188 years of freedom, eh? That deserves a round of applause.
And we know that it's been a while since we've been outside. And so as we blend with nature, let us absorb everything that is in our environment tonight, because the energy of our ancestors is real. And the fact that you have made an effort to come here tonight is representative of the love that you have for yourself. And so tonight, let us celebrate, let us clap, let us sing, let us dance, let us remember why we are here and who made it possible for it to be so.
Indeed, indeed. And I'd just like to establish some early protocols. We're so very happy to have His Excellency Ambassador Lionel Maxhurst with us. Give him a round of applause, folks. We're also expecting the Prime Minister. He should be here in about a half hour. We can applaud him in his absence? I guess so. Hopefully he will really come. And then we're also expecting the Minister of Culture, Mr. Daryl Matthew. He's running late as well. Let's give him, he's here? Oh, he's here, the Minister of Culture is here. And let's welcome him. We're also expecting the Minister of Creative Industries, the Honorable Michael Brown as well. Let's give him an applause. And of course, we're so very happy to have our very, very special guest, of course, the chairman of our Reparations Support Commission, Ambassador Dorbreen Omard. And of course, all the way from Africa, from the Kingdom of Ido, and they'll tell you more about that. We have His Excellency Zamboki Namboka. I think I'm calling it wrong. But I'll get it before the end of the show, eh? Before the end of the program, I'll get it. Welcome, Your Excellency, sir. Welcome. Yes. At this time, we're going to, without further ado, we're going to call on the Nyabingi drummers to favor us with a rendition. Give them a hand, please.
Give thanks that I can celebrate Emancipation Day, you know. But I need to emancipate I whole holistic body, you know, mind and soul in this time. Hallelujah. Jah. Yes, you know, and as a people come from far, you know, and I've been through many tribulations in the times before. So I give thanks that I can live today, that I can celebrate I myself one more time. Hallelujah. Jah. Prince and princesses must shout out of Egypt. Ethiopia now stretch forth her hands unto the name of living eye. Hallelujah. Jah. O thou dear am of Ethiopia, and I find worship. Thy every strut in thy heart, well in the path of righteousness lead I. Help I to forgive, that I must be forgiven. Teach I love and loyalty in earth is in Mount Zion. Endow I with love and wise man, knowledge and overstanding to do thy will. Thy blessing unto I Almighty am. Hallelujah. Jah. Let the hungry be fed, the naked clothed, the sick nourished, the aged protected, and the infant cared for. Deliver I from the hands of our enemies, that I must be fruitful in these first days. When our enemies are parts in decay, in depths of the seas, in the depths of the earth, on the belly of a beast. Give I place in the holy king, man. Through the power of the King of Kings, Lords of Lords, conquering lion of the tribe of Judah, that elected himself in the light of this world. And I van majesty. Hallelujah. Jah. First ancient king of iration, for Jah the Alpha and Omega, beginning without end, first and forever, protector of the rule of, protector of thy faith, rule of the universe. So I hear love living I. Hallelujah. Jah. And I hear the most visible and invisible eye. Hallelujah. Jah. And I hear the most mighty and the honorable eye. Hallelujah. Joe. One perfect love to one and all. Welcome to celebrate oneself. Emancipate yourself from mental slavery. None but ourselves can free I and I mind. Hallelujah. Joe.
Aye, aye. Jah, glowful in words, glowful in sound, and glory to the fullness of the irates of the Most High. Aye, Jah, and I give enough thanks, enough praises for the Nyabingi order. You know, I and I organizing and centralizing the fullness of the Rastafari movements in Antigua and Barbuda, building strong institution and organization that is directed to establish true sustainable trades and development programs in pursuit of I ultimate aim goals and objectives of the 3R of redemption, reparation, and repatriation. Aye, Jah. I said I proud to be black. I am an Ethiopian. I said I'm proud to be black. I am an Ethiopian. A Congo Moses and Aaron, King Solomon, Sheba too. I said I'm proud to be black. I am an Ethiopian. We African have a glorious history. I say we built the first university sanctuary. Oh, Imhotep, the father of medicine, he was an African. I said I'm proud to be black. I am
Haile I, Selassie I, Jah, Rastafari, greet you in the divine name of His Imperial Majesty Emperor Haile Selassie I. Strength and power of the Holy Trinity, give thanks for life, and I'll pay tribute, libation to and I great people, and I great ancestors. So, and I give thanks for the fight they fought for I, you know, the struggles that they have so long toiled, and I cannot be, you know, let them their works fall to naught. We have to stand strong as African men and women today. As it says there, heritage, reflection. So we pay libation to that. We, Ashe, we pay libation to the great leaders of Africa who stand up, even forge the OAU, now the African Union, Ashe. And I pay tribute to ancestors within the realms of slavery who stand up and fought, men like King Court, Tomboy, Sakunde, Ashe. And I also pay libation to great leaders here, even VC Bird, Ashe. And I pay libation to elders in the Rastafari community, King Frankai, Ras Clark, Brother Shaka, Brother Clark and I pay tribute for the struggles as I fight, continuing the battle in this grace court of African redemption, African liberation, African emancipation. Ashe. Give thanks and praises. Let the ancestor forever be with us and guide us through. Ashe. Bless you.
It's such a beautiful energy to honor your ancestors. And if it's your first time witnessing it, I want to encourage you that it is the most honorable act, and there's nothing to be ashamed of. You could do it in your home, you could do it in your yard, you could do it with your family. So always remember to pour libation for your ancestors. It is with great pleasure that I now invite Dobrin Omad, the chair of the Antigua-Barbuda Reparation Support Commission, to offer his welcome remarks. Let us give him a round of applause.
Thank you so much, Sister Tavia. I observe all protocols, but brothers and sisters, please allow me to pay special homage to our guest of honor, His Excellency Ambassador Oronio Namboka of the IDO International Network. IDO is the coordinating agency of the Alliance of Traditional Kings and Queens of Africa. You will hear from Ambassador Namboka a bit later, and I hope he will tell us a little more about IDO, about the connections that IDO has established with us here in the Caribbean, and about the work they do with the traditional kings and queens on the continent. It is indeed good to be back on the park. We haven't been here since COVID. And I do hope that we have learned some lessons from that pandemic. For me, one important lesson is that we breathe, inhale and exhale the same air. And it is difficult to get more interconnected than that. I hope we have not only recognized our personal responsibilities to family and friends, but also our social responsibility to one and all in our offices, in the banks, on the buses, in the malls. That recognition that we are one people. My duty here tonight is simply to welcome you to this, the Antigua and Barbuda Reparations Supports Commission 14th staging of this Watch Night gathering. This gathering staged in celebration and in commemoration of the 188th anniversary of the emancipation of our forebears from European enslavement. And some may ask, perhaps legitimately, why? For what? I think it's important that we recognize the resistance of our forebears against those who had guns in the first instance and moral and political authority in the second. Power and authority that lasted through the period of enslavement and the colonial period, which ended for us in 1981. We think it's important to our reparations struggle to recognize that through the Emancipation Act, the British Emancipation Act of 1833, that was the first time in law, in international law, that Britain recognized and approved what had been practiced on the high seas and in these colonies here in the Caribbean, that Africans, our forefathers, our foremothers, were chattel, were property to be bought and sold like cattle. In 1834, 1835, Britain borrowed 20 million pounds to actually buy 665,000 enslaved Africans in this region. Freedom from their plantation owners and enslavers. But we tend to overlook, because it did not happen here in Antigua, that Britain also enforced an apprenticeship period of 4 years of continued free labor in our outer territories, accounting for a sum of an additional 27 million pounds. We are talking about the equivalent today of $20 billion, today's value. Tonight, as every day and every night, we remind Britain of that gross violation of human rights law and demand the reparations for its crime against humanity. Importantly also, because I think we're on a crest, a new move of political strengthening of what I refer to now as global Africa, we noticed that over the last decade, an important shift in both our African continental vision and the Caribbean vision has taken place. I think we have begun to see each other again, to work together, to rearrange this world and make the African central and important to its operation. Historically, it is important to recognize that the theology, the ideology of Pan-Africanism is a Caribbean concept, born of the thinking of Caribbean people who, although they had not been to Africa, in their spirits yearned for the connection with the motherland. A theology, an ideology born of the thinking of Caribbean people, like George Padmore of Trinidad and Tobago, Amy Césaire of Martinique, Jean-Prince Mars of Haiti, followed by the work of the great prophet Marcus Garvey in the 1920s. And it's important too to remind you that that great Garvey movement had quite a few Antiguans in its leadership. Antiguans like George Weston and Bishop Maguire. The Antigua and Barbuda Reparation Support Commission has been playing a role in improving and increasing the synergy between Africa and the Caribbean. Our African Liberation Day lecture of a few months ago was delivered by an African professor, Sam Entewusu, and that lecture was about the role of traditional kings and queens in Africa. Tonight, we welcome Ambassador Namboka to our shores, and specifically to our WatchNight gathering. We applaud also the efforts of our CARICOM governments to join with committed African leaders to declare September 7th Africa CARICOM Day, a day when our synergy shifts from dialogue only to the practical necessities of survival in this cruel capitalist world led by Europe and the United States. When we shift to issues such as shared trade and investment, tourism, agricultural development, air transportation links, the removal of barriers to travel, such as visas, and importantly, to focus on people-to-people exchanges. We need to renew our relationships as family to get back together as one people. So I'm asking you to be prepared for another gathering on Wednesday, the 7th of September, to celebrate Africa CARICOM Day. But also that we must, from this point on, take note of the commitments made by our governments and devise ways to monitor their progress. And so again, I say welcome. Welcome to this WatchNight gathering. It's produced by Ambassador Liverpool and Ms. Shana Mitchell. Yeah, sure you'll see them around. And I know for sure that they have a wonderful show, a wonderful exchange of ideas, of music and poetry, etc., here for us tonight. I thank you very, very much.
Thank you very much, Ambassador Omar. And of course, we're so happy to see all of you. He extended words of welcome, but I'm extending words of welcome to my co-host, Tavia Hunt. About 3 people met me and saw me today, and they said, Paul, she not coming tonight. I see her down at Breakfast Fete. She down at... So I was in a panic, so I called her and I said, Tavia, look, everybody telling me you're down by Breakfast Fete. She said, don't worry, Paul, I will be there. And she's here. So welcome, Tavia. Of course, we want to pause for a minute or so to remember Ambassador Franklin King Franklin Francis. There'll be a tribute to him later on in today's broadcast. But he would have been up here with the Nyabingi, and we miss him. Let's just pause for a minute or so to remember Ambassador Franklin King Franklin Francis. Jah Rastafari. Folks, at this time we're going to present a video greeting from His Royal Highness Tanil Robinson. I draw your attention to the monitor. A greeting from Ambassador Robinson.
Good day, my paternal and fraternal greetings to all of you out there in Antigua and Barbuda on these celebrations of Emancipation today. The ancestors of Africa, your descendants, join me in wishing you and this festivity successes. And in the committee, the reparatory committee, also prosperity in whatever they are doing. Unfortunately, it wasn't very possible for me to make it because of hiccups that had to do with the transit visas. But I hope that I'll be able to be notified on time for next year celebrations. We are very concerned with the struggle for our liberations. We are very concerned with bringing the spirits of our African descendants.
Well, we want to thank His Royal Majesty King Tani Robinson. And as we continue with our celebration, I want to invite Ras Coyote back on stage to do a performance for us. Let us welcome him.
Blessed love. Highly high. Well, you know, it's about strength and power. You know, because history taught us where we're from and where we should be. So, you know, we got to reflect and reminisce on Sankofa by checking out our history so we can direct our path forward in the future. So this is about you and me, because, you know, we are kings and queens. And I want you to never forget that. And remember that God lives in you. He don't live up there in the sky. Because we are African people, our ancient ancestors know that the Almighty is within them. Now, because of slavery, you know, because of the European coming and Christianize us, you know, we have lost that connection, because Christianity really teaches you that God is outside of you. You know, it teaches you to look outside for God, when God is really inside of you. God is a spirit, it's an energy. You know, the spirit energy rules the whole universe. So we got to get back to that consciousness of kings and queens and realizing and recognizing that God is in us and we are gods and goddesses of the earth. Highly high, Selassie I, drop the sound. Strength and power. Remember your roots, remember your culture. 1834, 1st of August, Emancipation Day. Oh yes, and the struggle, remember. Don't you dare forget. Struggle, remember. Don't you dare forget. And not to be black, and not to be black, and not to be black. Sing the song, yeah, and not to be black, and not to be black, and not to be black. Blazing, so we go fight the battle. And so we win the victory fight. So we build on our ancestors' legacy. When we say strength and power, when you know yourself and your history, roots and culture, don't find the mystery. Strength and power, we are who we are, not who you are. We be roots and culture, absolutely. And so we set we selfie. History tells a purpose. Yo, strength and power. History tells us where you're from, alright? Where we must be. History tells the people where we. Yo, so we now highlight the things that divides us. No, sir. Forwardly we liberate what unites us. African creativity, fortitude and bravery. African liberation. We free from slavery. Now sell out, robber Babylonians are the enemies. That's why you're following His Majesty. Hear the strength and power when you know yourself and your history, roots and culture. Don't break the love the song, eh? Strength and power. Why is it? strength and power. Play me some conscious music. Play me some righteous music. Play me some music for touch my soul. Me and dance for me to fit. King Shachad, him did do it. King him did do it. King Swallow, sing about African liberation, yes or true. So don't get caught by the beast. Vanity, vanity, come on, glitz. Globalization is just a big, big bag of chicks. Controlled by the wizard and witch, Freemasons and fascists and freaks. Just like a thief in the night, destruction I gonna make them piss. Hey, strength and power when you know yourself. Roots and culture, straight from Africa, ain't no mystery. Strength and power, we are who we are, not who you are, we be. Roots and culture, absolutely. So you set yourself free. 1834, 1st of August, that's why we celebrate, you know. Emancipation Day. Oh yes, and the struggle, 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 remember. Don't you dare forget. Struggle, 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 remember. Don't you dare forget. And not to be black, and not to be black, and not to be black. Sing the song, yeah, and not to be black, and not to be black, and not to be black. Blessing, so we go fight the battle. And so we win the victory fight. Now we build. Boy, I say strength and power. How what me say? Strength and power. When you know, we work with we, work with we. Roots and culture. Boy, I work with me now. Strength and roots and absolutely. Again. When you know yourself and your history. Straight from Africa, ain't no mystery. We are who we are, not who they want us to be. Absolutely. So we set ourselves free. Yeah. Rastafari, blessed love. Strength and power, set yourself free. Remember, God is in you. Highly high, Selassie high.
Good stuff. Folks, he deserves another round of applause. Strength and power. When you know yourself and your history, roots and culture, that's who we are. Not who you want us to be. We are who we are. I love that song. 5 years ago when I came home, I heard it first right here, fell in love with it. And every year I insist that he sings Strength and Power. He can't come and sing nothing else but Strength and Power. Earlier this evening, I said, Mamba, did you confirm that Coyote gonna sing Strength and Power? He said he not telling me what he gonna sing, but it's a surprise. He couldn't bring no surprise here, but Strength and Power. That's what's up. Every year, he has to sing Strength and Power. That's what's up, folks. Great stuff from Ras Coyote Erasto. At this time, we're going to be favored with another video presentation from Princess Nikai. We draw your attention to the monitor.
Your Excellency, Ambassador Irene Namboka, our ideal representative and from the African continent that has visited the Caribbean, Antigua and Barbuda. We are greeting you and we are greeting the state government. We are greeting all the ambassadors and the organizers of those celebrations. We want to thank you for the opportunity for us to travel and meet and reconcile and reconnect with you. As Africans, we have been detached, we have been separated by the missionaries, by the invaders, by the settlers, the colonizers, the Europeans that have imposed to us their Western religion, and they have used the religion to brutally kill our ancestors. And not only just kill, but to take away our brothers and sisters away from us, away from their motherland, away from their roots. Today, we can say we are free from such chains, but I want to say to you, it is not yet Uhuru. We must continue to fight, as I know some of you are out there fighting for the reparations, fighting for the apology, because an apology is very important for us as Africans. Even in our continent, there's a lot of things that have been done to us. We are still fighting for those reparations. There are many countries here that they have been brutally killed, destroyed. Our kingdoms have been destroyed. A lot of countries no longer have traditional leaders. So we want to be in solidarity with you. We want to hold hands. I want to unite so that we can make one voice to the whole world as Africans. We love you. Don't forget that you are our brothers and sisters, even when we are separated by the oceans. But we shall create those bridges and that are going to bring us together all the time. You must know who you are. Maibuye Africa. Thank you so much.
Such a heartwarming message from Princess Nikiri. Didn't you feel that? I almost cried. Let us give that another round of applause, please. I felt her love coming through that video, and I hope we all received it. It is with great pleasure that I now invite Honorable Michael Brown, Minister of Creative Industries and Innovation, to give us his remarks. Let us give him a round of applause as he comes to the podium.
Good night, everybody. Good night, everybody. All right. Let me, please allow me to adopt the protocols already established. As we gather to commemorate the 188th anniversary of Emancipation, let us not forget that we as Africans in the West, we come from a rich heritage of kings and queens. African societies have been led by kings and queens for centuries, and that, or heritage as Africans, is a rich example of the structure of culture and the way of life for us. The hosting of this Watch Night celebration provides the opportunity for us to embrace the efforts to re-educate ourselves and to set for children to become more educated about African history, culture, and heritage. Emperor Mansa Musa, who reigned over Mali in the 14th century, King Osei Tutu of Asante of the 17th century Ghana, were successful African royal figures who shaped the course of history in West Africa through their strength, their vision, and their wisdom. Therefore, our coming together here tonight is a recognition of our emancipation that allows us to reflect on our rich and glorious history of the African continent, giving hope and inspiration to all. So, as we gather here, let us usher in Emancipation 2002. Let us pledge to learn more about our African ancestry, learn more about the African core values created for the coexistence of human civilization, and to spread the word that Africa is a cradle of human civilization. Let us continue to celebrate our African royalty and heritage. Happy Emancipation, Antigua and Barbuda.
Ladies and gentlemen, let's give the Minister of Creative Industries another big hand. We thank him for coming out. I believe the good minister went to breakfast fete along with Minister Matthew. Did you guys go? Or yeah, they did?
I wasn't the only one that went, Paul.
All right. As I said before, about 3 or 4 people called me and said, Paul, she's not going to show up tonight because she's having a grand time down at breakfast fete. At around 3 o'clock, I got nervous. So I called her and I said, Tavi, you have to come in because we're a team. I can't do it by myself. Mamba said, Paul, you may have to do it yourself. I don't think Tavi come in. But she assured me that she'd be here, and I'm happy that she is.
I'll never let my people down, Paul.
I know.
You know, I love my culture.
I know.
It is with great pleasure that I now invite our distinguished guest, His Excellency Ironio Namboka, Vice President of IDO Network International, to bring greetings on behalf of the African Kingdom Diaspora Alliance. Let us welcome him, please. His Excellency,
Honorable Ministers, Your Excellencies, the ambassadors present, and all protocol observed, because I don't know which titles to mention or in which order to mention them. So allow me to say all protocol observed. Thank you. I allow my humble self, on behalf of two kings, King Tanyi Dr. Robertson of Cameroon, who addressed you earlier on, and on behalf of Princess Nikiwe Bam from South Africa, and His Royal Majesty King Bungani of the Embo Kingdom, who because of technical challenges have not been able to be present, and they asked me to stand in their place to greet you and to bring the emotional attachment all the continent has towards you, our own people, our blood, our sisters and brothers. Those are the greetings I would like to start with before I say the few words I thought I should say on this occasion. First of all, it's a great honor to be present and join the people of Antigua and Barbuda celebrating the 2022 celebration, the Emancipation event. Emancipation for Africa is a very recent and fresh notion because it means independence. It means uhuru, as Princess Nikiwe mentioned. And it isn't yet uhuru. We have a job to do to really see uhuru. The title I gave to the speech I'd like to make to you is The Voice of the Survivors of Slavery in Africa, Victims or Conspirators. We are the victims of injustice from the Western world, Europe and the United States of America. But Africa is also a survivor, because to bring the people that you are descendants from, they left behind wailing mothers, wailing fathers, who they hadn't been able to capture because the hunt for humans to be taken away as slaves wasn't targeting any specific person. Those who remained and were not killed on the ground were survivors in very much the same way you, because of the resilience of the African gene, 500 years since your ancestors came to this part of the world, you're still alive and kicking and swearing to go higher and higher. That is the unbeatable African spirit. Now, for well over now half a century, there has been a grand, systematic and persistent narrative as part of a project determined with an effort to falsify, distort, and sometimes even obliterate historical facts about Africa and the African people. However, as the wise said, time is a solver of problems. Today, thanks to the unprecedented scientific technological advancement, equally determined efforts by objective scientists, historians, archaeologists, linguists, and anthropologists, We, the Africans ourselves, are taking the responsibility to tell the world our own version of who we are and what happened to us. We challenge the widely propagated narrative by self-appointed specialists on Africa who would like to be regarded as the monopoly holders of human civilization. An earlier distinguished speaker, Ambassador Dermadi, the brain said the beginning of civilization was on the African continent. In fact, humanity itself, biologically, germinated on the surface of the earth in Africa. To start this reflection, we stand on the broad shoulders of great Africans gone before us and whose noble fight we are only continuing today. One of these great men said, and I quote here, decisively recognizing the scientific errors of interpretation, even in the field of heritage, is critical to understanding Africa. There is pretense that deceives itself in certain schools of thought by trying to base its moral construction on the most monstrous falsification man has ever been guilty of, while at the same time asking the victim to forget in order to move forward. That was Sheikh Anta Diop, the great scientist, historian, archaeologist, and physicist. As an African myself, born on the chosen continent and representing IDO network here, I invite you, ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters, to observe a minute of silence in memory of this man, Sheikh Anta Diop. Add to him Ivan Gladstone van Sertima. Add to that Marcus Garvey. Also in the silence remember Shaka Zulu. Remember also Queen Nzinga of Angola. Queen Amina in what is today Nigeria, and two very important children of Africa in the Caribbean, Chancellor Williams and Sir Walter Rodney. One of the most successful misrepresentation of great ideas and their origin is the notion of the golden rule. This idea of the golden rule is very badly and commonly represented, which most of us here are quite familiar with. Who is it attributed to, this golden rule? Jesus, and of course, a white Jesus. That is approximately 2,000 years ago, and certainly not from Africa. Researchers, however, trace its origin way back to well over 3,000 years before that. It was found to have been an epitaph in the Book of the Dead, written by ancient pharaohic Egyptians. This leads us now to the next, more contentious question of who these Egyptians were. Who are the authors of the notion of the golden rule? Were they Africans? And if they were Africans, were they really black people? The name I gave you at the beginning, Sheikh Anta Diop, the most controversial Egyptologist, as an expert of the last century in Africa, we are familiar with those who are interested in human civilization on earth, that Africa is the cradle of human civilization. Those arguments advanced by Sheikh Anta Diop come out clearly when you read the book, The Destruction of African Civilization by Chancellor Williams. Once again, an African child in the diaspora who left us his labor and sweat. The book is The Destruction of the Civilization of Africa. The work by these two scholars brings out irrefutable findings on what Africans on the continent were before the eruption of barbaric looters and destroyers. Closer to us today, we have Professor Bwembambong in his book, When Africa Was Europe's Black Gold. This man excavates archival data that must widely be disseminated for the benefit of Africa's new generation, both on the continent and in the diaspora. Finally, about what Africans were before the interruption, on this distortion of what Africa really was, two other traveling books need to be mentioned here as we reflect on who we are. Of course, the Eurocentric pseudo-scientific intellectual propaganda will not want to hear that before Columbus, Africans had come to the Caribbean, way before Christopher Columbus. We also know that there has been a thinker, another African child in the diaspora called Carter Woodson, who wrote The Miseducation of the Negro. We on the continent, like you, the children of Africa in the diaspora, have had 400 to 500 years of miseducation. We don't know who we are. And I would like to recognize the meaning of the gentleman who came here a while ago, the tall African child, who was seriously telling us things, but amusing this usual African sense of humor in the middle of very serious communication. It is with the above background that we now tackle the question I was asked to talk about this evening, when for the first time in our preparatory work, a team of IDOS activists and Ambassador Brain Domadi invited me as someone from Africa to address the question, were Africans on the continent captured, or did they capture fellow Africans and sell them? This is a subject I was invited to share thoughts about with you. Were African kings and queens part of the project that got your ancestors taken away from the continent and benefited from that activity? I take the point of departure, as I want to answer this question, from the question, what were Africans before Europeans came like? What were they as a civilization? What kind of people were they? Around the year 1235, there was a great emperor in the area which we today call Mali, but it was Sudan. It was a very big empire. The emperor was Sundiata Keita. This emperor issued a declaration, a charter to his people. The charter is called the Kurkanfuga Charter, or the Manden Charter. It was the code of behavior of people in his empire, and that goes to a large extent for the whole of African people. This man anticipating what the world, from the Western world, let's say, created in 1948 as the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. In 1235, this African emperor issued a charter, and in that charter he said, "Do not ill-treat the slave. We are masters of slaves, but not their bag to be carried." He went further. "Never offend women, our mothers. We should help those who are in need. Everybody has a right to life and to the preservation of physical integrity." That tells you how the people from the civilized European nations, and I'm using the word civilization here with quotes, who came to Africa from about 1450, 16th century, 15th century probably, and insisted on doing what they wanted to do against the African people. And when they came, their culture was might is right. If you were weak, they beat you up, they defeated you, they subjugated you, and they took away your mother, took away your father, took away your child. That was exactly the opposite of what the African code of conduct in life was. Sundiata Keita's charter. And it goes back to echo the golden rule, which the pharaohs of antiquity had laid already. So, after the Mandan Charter, we should start to look at what was happening in the countries which came to the African continent, as I said, after 1400, after Columbus found his way to the Western world from the African continent. There are travelers in Africa around the year 1352, 1353, and this man was an Arab from the Middle East. He describes the kind of society Africa was, if we want to know the habits, the atmosphere that existed on the continent. This is what he wrote. "Acts of injustice are rare among them. Of all the people, it's them who are least inclined to commit them, the acts of injustice. And the black sultan, that means the king or chief, never pardons anyone, whoever it is, who was guilty of injustices. Throughout the country, perfect peace prevails. One can live there and travel everywhere without fear of being robbed or plundered. They do not seize property belonging to white people who die in their country, despite the fact that these would be of great value. They don't touch them." This is a quote. I'll give you the name, Ibn Battuta. Ibn Battuta was an Arab traveler between 1352 and 1355. But that was not all there was. That was about an entire century before the much vaunted Christopher Columbus would go and discover, what they call it, to discover the West Indies. This part of the earth's surface, including what we now call Canada and the United States of America, became a place where West Europeans would go. And what did they do when they came to this part of the world? Because we are talking about civilization as it was in Africa, as that Arab traveler has told us, and what Columbus and his friends would do. The natives of this part of the world met European Christian civilization from about 1492. The head of the church in Europe at that time was Pope Nicholas V. And normally in our own upbringing, when you speak about religion, it is a good thing. It is a humanizing thing. But at that time, when Columbus discovered what we call America today, the Pope was in office in the year 1445, issued a bulletin, a declaration that Spain and Portugal should conquer and enslave those uncivilized, heathen, pagan societies everywhere on earth. The people I just told you, the civilization as it was, the Charter of Kurkanfoga in Mali, and the Arab traveler who described and said you can't find an act of injustice, the Pope at that time said no, go and capture them and enslave them and make them Christians because they are pagans and primitive. From about that time, Europeans searching for human labor for their sugar plantations and cotton fields, competing against one another in cruelty and lust against, they set out viciously and invaded African countries with Portugal in the lead, under the blessing of the church at that time. Entrepreneurs, governments and church perpetrated barbaric genocidal acts. All sorts of crimes were permitted against the people of Africa. Atrocities included mercenary soldiering, resulting in mass killings of native populations in the same manner the Amerindians had been treated before being literally decimated. In Africa, the hunting for humans aimed at capturing them alive, subduing and turning them into their own hunting gangs. They would catch Africans and force them to catch fellow Africans. They would get a king that was not cooperating, subdue him, fight him for years, and we shall see the kings at the end of this speech. Resistance to the marauding forces meant death, regardless of who the rebellion came from, man or woman, ordinary person, chief or queen. The victims or captives were then taken as goods for trade between European countries, the countries themselves. The invaded used deadly, highly sophisticated weapons in fighting a peaceful people, armed merely with the spears and arrows, and killing and destroying homes, villages, nations on the African continent. It was a massacre that was going on by the civilized people. But there was formidable resistance to the European slave hunters throughout the continent, and this is now beginning to answer the question we asked. Africans before the Europeans came to the continent lived their lives. They lived more or less like a peaceful continent. After the Europeans came, people were set against each other. If you didn't fight to join the hunters of slavery, forces were set against you and enmity grew up. Nevertheless, there was resistance. One of the people that I want to mention that resisted the slave traders, and no, not even traders, but capturers, hunters, was Queen Amina Zraunia Zazua, who lived between 1533 and 1610. She was a warrior queen, expanded her territory of the Hausa people of North into North Africa, and was a large entity, but when the Europeans came to try and capture that land eventually. But that woman fought and resisted Europeans who had come because they had their commercial ambitions that were to depend on capturing people on the continent. There was another woman, king, Queen Zingambande, in what we'd call Angola today. Queen Zingambande ruled, or rather lived between 1583 to 1663. She was the queen of the kingdom of Ndongo and Matamba, 1631, 1633. This lady made the Portuguese fail to do what they wanted for 37 years. So when we talk about people being collaborators in having African people, African children, or families selling their own people, it is a narrative calculated to call the victim the culprit. Africa was not involved in slaving. Africa was attacked, invaded by Europeans to take away humans for use in the lands they had discovered in the Western Sphere. Those kings and queens that you may hear that collaborated are comparable to the stooges we have today on the continent after independence. You will recall that when in 1960, Belgian Congo had a man, a very luminary thinker, Patrice Lumumba. But as soon as they saw the quality of man he was, they did everything, killed him, and put Mobutu Sese Seko in his place. And this demagogue and puppet for 40 years remained as the president of Congo. Slavery, the hunters of slaves in Africa started in the 15th century. And that hunting and slaving went on until about 1900, yesterday. And they did all these things. They would depose kings that were for the people, sabotage, play tricks, and put there errand boy kings. And these are the fellows they say were enjoying the selling and trading. Those who cooperated under duress. You've just heard those who knew the African societies. What about the golden rule I said about? The golden rule was do to your friend exactly as you'd want that friend to do to you. If that has been the code of behavior, of life in Africa, and it continues to this day, but it has been distorted and falsified, first of all, presented as if it came from Europeans coming to teach Christianity. It wasn't. Christianity is a reflection largely of the values Africans themselves had already. But those who teach Christianity didn't live to the demands and standards of Christianity. I've had an opportunity to live in countries away from my own. I was born in East Africa, in Uganda. But I've gone to Senegal and been to Gorée Island, the island where the slaves finally would go to a point of no return. I've also been to Cape Coast in Ghana, another fort. I've been to Tanzania, to Bagamoyo. It's another port. In fact, ridiculously, the port carries the name Fort Jesus. It's criminal. But these people would have the kind of bunker. On top, they would have a church, and the agonizing people of Africa, captured, dying, wounds, hunger, disease, underground. And the slavers would be celebrating Mass on top. Now, some of us happen to be Christians. I am a Catholic. But we need to develop a level of knowledge that separates beans from pebbles. And our teachers have not taught what we should be taught. We were taught things that ought not to be taught. I'd like to go from here and develop the theme that Africa has resisted injustice. The theme of emancipation here reflects the African soul. We are people that breathe justice. Another society has distorted the mind of the black man. Now listen to these names as people in Africa who have fought, sometimes have been killed, but they've fought. I mentioned first Patrice Lumumba. This is a recent case. I was already alive. But for you people of this part of the world, you know Toussaint Louverture, the African child who made the French dance and run for their lives. He was an African child. He was a slave, but he knew what justice was. And with his boys, they fought and beat off Napoleon. This is the meaning of understanding justice. Sometimes justice has to be died for. Nelson Mandela said that. We also have Jomo Kenyatta, the father of today's president of Kenya, Uhuru Kenyatta. Jomo Kenyatta saw people come to Kenya from Europe after the Second World War, captured the lands that were arable, and forced the Africans to labor free, kind of slavery on your own ancestral land. Jomo Kenyatta organized very much along the lines of Toussaint Louverture. And the Mau Mau struggle, resistance, ended by beating the British. And indeed, although Kenyatta was imprisoned for 7 years, that is justice for you, those who want to learn justice from the Western world. But Kenyatta fought, and after 7 years of imprisonment, came back, and his people recognized him as their head of state. We also have Béhanzin. Béhanzin was an emperor in Dahomey, Western Africa. He was betrayed by people that were again bought by the French colonizers. But he resisted for a very long time. There is another West African man, Almami Samori Toure. Almami Samori Toure was in Guinea, Conakry. And this person symbolizes again the resistance of the Africans against the kind of barbarism and madness that was going on in the heads of the so-called colonizers. Then, of course, I should mention a name that you all know, Nelson Mandela. Nelson Mandela is another sign, another symbol, and he was fighting simply for justice, simple equality, but he was imprisoned for 27 years in the eyes of the Western world. So we cannot begin to say that we're going to learn. Okay. So we are not going to learn lessons from other societies. Africans have always had a meaning for justice. Maybe to cut a long story short, I should say this. We, in all these that look like anomalies, we have a reason to breathe a little air of positive news. Although I gave you the name of the person who was the head of the Catholic Church that approved that black people were savages and should be Christianized and civilized through that, anybody who is thinking and who committed to spirituality will have been listening and asking questions, but that was in 1455. We have news as we speak now, last week, on the 25th of July, the present head of the church, a Christian church, in Canada, made an earth-shaking statement when he said that the church was very wrong, that he heartily apologizes for what the church did in Canada to the people. I think I should read the words he said. He said this: the moment is hugely historical, as I said. He said, sorry. Yes, he said, I humbly beg forgiveness for the evil committed by so many Christians against the indigenous people of Canada here. The forced assimilation of indigenous people into Christian society destroyed their cultures, severed their families, and marginalized generations in ways still felt today. My apology is only the first step in making amends with the indigenous people of Canada. A serious investigation must be conducted into the facts of what occurred in the past. In the name of Jesus, may this never happen again in the church. This piece of information is very relevant because we've grown up to be believers in faith, spiritually, genuinely. If Pope Nicholas in the 15th century spoke stupidity, the Pope today has reason to say what he has said and to appeal. Although he was speaking to the Canadian indigenous people, this information is relevant to those of us who are talking about reparations, emancipation, and to be recognized as humans in the image of God. Indeed, when God made man, he made him in his image. But man appeared on the continent of Africa first. So we are the image of God. Because if God made man on the African continent, that's what science tells us, and he made man in his image, then we are the image of God. And it seems to be true, because all these crimes, Africans had been traveling the world over before Christopher Columbus. Our ancestors traveled, but we never captured, we never enslaved, we never harassed any society. So probably time has come for us to keep the hope that we will overcome. I thought I should conclude with one thing. What does all this information make us feel now? I think that we must not lose hope. Whatever the odds we come across, we shouldn't give up, because things take time. It has taken 500 years for the church to correct what the Pope said. 500 years. And this is to everybody that lives today sees. 2, crimes are crimes, and justice will ultimately prevail in a one way or another. It's a question of time. We said, time is a solver of problems. Let's sustain the struggle. We will overcome. Humanity is frail. The great of today aren't not necessarily the great of tomorrow. One time it was Portugal and Spain and Rome who ruled the world. Then we had a bipolar world where there was the United States and Russia. Today China seems to be nibbing and causing people to ask questions. Africa will come back again and be the master of the universe as we were at the beginning. Finally, the subject of reparations to the people of Africa who have gone through centuries of denigration, cruelty, exploitation, discrimination, and humiliation will then, if we approach the positive attitude, we will reach what we want to reach. This means perseverance and looking at the example of the heroes, finally, like Toussaint Louverture, who fought against odds but did prevail. Allow me, in responding to that question, Africans didn't sell their own people. Those who may have sold were doing that under duress to survive, to be alive. Allow me to conclude as I pay respect to the Honorable Prime Minister for gracing our evening. Thank you very much indeed.
Let us indeed give His Excellency Namboka a really resounding round of applause. Not only were your greetings profound, but extremely empowering. And I know that we would have all received so much valuable information, some of it for the first time gracing our ears. And I know that when we leave here, we will continue to search to unearth everything that we ever questioned about ourselves and our inheritance. Thank you so, so much. We are honored to have you in our presence tonight.
Very well said, Tavia. We are indeed honored. We also want to acknowledge the presence of the political leader of the United Progressive Party, the Honorable Harold Lovell. He is with us somewhere around. We also want to acknowledge Senator Sean Nicholas. She has graced us with her presence as well. And of course, our Prime Minister, the Honorable Gaston Brown. Thank you so much for coming, sir. And I'll tell you something. When I came in, Mamba ran over to me and said, the Prime Minister is coming. I said, he didn't go breakfast, right? Because he said, I don't think he went. Did you go, sir? No, he didn't go. You see, he's my age. I think we've outgrown the breakfast fete thing, man. We grew up together, went to Sunday school together, went to church together. I know he is beyond that now. But thank you so much for coming, sir. And talking about breakfast fete, you have some exciting news to share about what's being sold over there, Tavia. Huh?
Oh, well, we've had breakfast fete too.
So somebody said.
Just a note for all of us, there is a bar that you can go and get some refreshments, and there's also food. So please patronize the bar and make sure that you get yourself something to eat and drink. So don't leave empty-handed, support the bar.
Very, very good. And I was paying attention to what the speaker was talking about, and he mentioned the lies told by the Europeans. So I want you to respond to me. We're talking about the culture song. Christopher Columbus is a... No, I'm not hearing it loudly enough. Christopher Columbus is a damn... That's what's up. Folks, it gives us great pleasure to introduce our very next guest, a special artist here in Antigua and Barbuda, Sammy C. Put your hands together, folks.
Good evening, my beautiful people. I truly feel like I'm back to my roots being here this evening. Jah Rastafari. Music. Black man, you better know yourself. Can't depend on no one else. White power came to Africa to rob, rape, and to plunder. Europe stole all our wealth, bringing strange diseases to destroy your health. You use Africa wealth to build your great America, leaving us poor and still, and applying pressure, pressure, pressure. So rise, black man, rise. Open up your eyes and fulfill your destiny. We should live in peace and harmony, because black is beautiful. Your future is in your hands. Black man, stay strong. We sing in redemption songs. You, we chanting down Babylon. You, so rise, black man, rise, black man, rise. It's black man redemption. Whoa, black man redemption. Yeah, black man redemption. Whoa, black man redemption. Whoa, black man, you better know your culture. History of Africa, how black man was really strong. 500 years of oppression, how we survived genocide and slavery. White power couldn't stop we. Of our parents could hardly read and write. It wasn't easy, but that didn't stop them from fight. Power in unity, unity, unity. So rise, black man, rise. Open up your eyes and fulfill your destiny. We should live in peace and harmony, because black is beautiful. Your future is in your hands. Black man, stay strong. We sing in redemption songs. You, we chanting down Babylon. You, so rise, black man, rise, black man, rise. It's black man redemption. Whoa, black man redemption. Yeah, black man redemption. Whoa, black man redemption. Whoa, black man, take a page out of history. We create math, science, philosophy. We create great invention. So why you sitting on your bum? Blaming friends and family, everybody. Free yourself from mental slavery. What have you done to help yourself? Blame yourself and no one else. Just what have you done to help yourself? Blame yourself and no one else. No one else, no one else. So rise, black man, rise. Open up your eyes and fulfill your destiny. We should live in peace and harmony, because black is beautiful. Your future is in your hands. Black man, stay strong. We sing in redemption songs. You, we chanting down Babylon. You, so rise, black man, rise, black man, rise. It's black man redemption. Whoa, black man redemption. Yeah, black man redemption. Whoa, black man redemption. your fist in the air to show the world that you care about your woman and your children, to protect and feed them. You should care about your future and country, representing your race with pride and dignity. Let the world see that you are a proud black man, defending your nation, a symbol of pride for emulation. Black man redemption, redemption, redemption. So rise, black man rise, open up your eyes and fulfill your destiny. We should live in peace and harmony, because black is beautiful. Your future is in your hands. Black man, stay strong. We sing in redemption songs. You, we chanting down Babylon. You, so rise, black man rise, black man rise. It's black man redemption. Whoa, black man redemption. Yeah, black man redemption. Whoa, thank you. Oh my, oh my.
Come on, we can do better than that. Black man redemption. Thank you, Sammy C. Well received. We're now going to...
Well, I like the exhortation for us to rise. And I see it happening here in Antigua and Barbuda. We're rising up, demanding reparatory justice and that sort of thing. We're more conscious of our heritage, our culture, where we came from, and where we ought to be. But while listening to her, I remembered Mama Africa. This was a black woman. She got off the slave ship. She ran away down at the market, ran over to Bowlands in the Shirkley Mountains area, and she terrorized the plantations out there. And always, whenever she hit a plantation, she would encourage the slaves to come with her and rise up. And then, of course, there's Mary Prince, and we've been studying her recently. She fought again and resisted slavery. Went to England where she became free. Then her owner, Mr. John Woods from Woods Estate, he wanted to bring her back to Antigua. She said, no. Because if she goes back to Antigua, she becomes a slave again. She said, no, I'd rather die here in London than return to Antigua to become a slave again. The thing is, she even gave up her husband because she was married to a man here in Antigua. And then, of course, there's Mary Thomas. Mary Thomas, she burnt down half of Frederickstead. She was a black woman who was a fighter and a struggler. She was of Antiguan extraction, went over to St. Thomas and fought, again encouraging black men to rise up, stand up, and fight. Papa Willie up in Mercer's Creek, Comfort Hall, he did the same thing. Rise, black man, rise. Stand up, black man, stand up. So we have a number, and of course we can't forget King Court and Tomboy and Hercules and Scipio and all of them. Rise, black man, rise.
Wow, Paul. Wow. Rise. We're now going to have a video clip rendering greetings from Ambassador Kimberly Percival. So let us draw our attention to the screen, the monitor, as she gives us her greeting.
I am Ambassador Kimberly Percival, IFBB Elite Pro and World Champion. It was on August 1st day in 1834 that the enslaved people of Antigua and Barbuda were freed from the control of the white plantation owner. It was on this day that all African Antiguan and Barbudans were liberated from the physical bondage of the estate and the psychological dependence of the slave owner. Let us give thanks as we celebrate Emancipation 2022.
We will now invite our featured speaker, Ms. Desley Gardner of the Antigua and Barbuda National Parks Authority, to give us her brief remarks. Let us welcome Ms. Desley Gardner.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. Allow me to adapt the protocols officially observed just recently. Thank you so much for having me here this evening. I heard brief remarks. I heard very brief remarks. I don't know how history can be brief, but I'll try my best. I just was very humbled, excited, and I felt the energy here this evening. I'm so honored to be here, and I want to thank everyone for coming out and participating in this watch night because it's so important, so integral into understanding, recognizing, and acknowledging those who went before us and what they paid, the price they paid on our behalf. And I think nights like these are so important. So just allow me to share some of my personal experiences with history. You know, being born in the very, very late 1900s, as a young woman, I have learned so much about my history because I found a need to explore it, to understand it, because when I was studying history in fifth form, CXC history, we had many textbooks written by Hilary Beckles and Vereen Shepherd. And these textbooks spoke about slave rebellion. Slave rebellion that happened in the Caribbean. And oftentimes, Antigua would get 2 lines, not even a paragraph, and they would say that we were passive in our rebellion. And I didn't like that. I didn't like passive. I don't like that word passive. It makes it sound like if we were complicit, we were okay with the fact. And then when it came closer to emancipation, they would speak about the apprenticeship period and that Antiguans, we just went back to the plantation as if it was just regular life for us. And it didn't really highlight the fact that we were being oppressed under a very dramatic system that was so continuous for so many years. So, as now a student of history and archaeology, I seek to remember, recognize, and identify persons in our history and share them with my fellow Antiguans because I'm very proud. Every time I was in university and they would ask, what about Antigua? What y'all did there? I wanted to share our stories, share the names of our people because I felt that that was very important. So tonight I just wanted to share a few stories with you. Talk about some slave rebellion leaders, you know, and just so that we can add names to the list of Kim Court or Kawaku Taki or Tomboy, Hercules, Scipio, all these names that we already know, but to know that the list goes on. There are more people that need to be recognized. And when Ambassador Omad shared with me that the theme was remembrance, recognition, resistance, I really felt like if the need to speak about these people was necessary for tonight's proceedings. So the first one I wanted to speak about was Komano. Komano, he was one of the first to utilize the Sherkley Mountains, or as we affectionately call Buggy Peak, as an area's resistance. They practiced maroonage there. They escaped from the plantations and they rebelled into these high hills and they practiced guerrilla warfare and tactical methods of resisting against slavery. Active resistance against slavery, not passive. We weren't doing go-slows, we were rebelling against the system. So Kwamano, he was actually seen as very dangerous. They recognized him in assembly minutes as being a very dangerous Negro fellow. So in 1746, on the 3rd of July, a warrant was put out for his arrest, and they asked for a ransom. The ransom was 20 pistols and gold coins for the finding of Kwamano. Kwamano had a full allegiance in the Sherkley Mountains with him. And one unfortunate downfall, which we've learned from the Stony Gut tale, Infama. So, imagine you have a full support around you in the Sherkley Mountains, and then someone informs on your plan to go down into the plantations and set them afire. Mind you, Komano had already lit many plantations afire, destroyed many properties already. So that is why he was labeled a dangerous Negro fellow. So having done this now, this informant allowed for him to be captured and executed. However, That did not stop more slaves from going on, more enslaved persons, I'm sorry, from going on and rebelling to the Sherkley Mountains, which is why it's such an important and sacred space to us as Antiguans. It's a space where our ancestors would flee to, a place where they could practice their cultural traditions and ways. It's a space where we acknowledge even today as Buggy Peak because we know, we feel the energy, the spiritual connection there to our people that were once there. So later on in the 1790s, that's when the Caribbean was really hot because we know that the Haitian Revolution was happening then. The French Revolution was rampant and the ideologies of liberty, equality, and fraternity were hot in the Caribbean. So that rhetoric was spreading all around, and that's where we have our next slave rebellion leader, Grigg. This is where Grigg now becomes the other dangerous Negro fellow being recorded in the Assembly Minutes of Antigua. And we have him now being an even greater threat because he had been exposed to these ideologies of the French Revolution. So the main question that was being asked on our plantations here in Antigua is, am I not a man and a brother? Am I not a human being? Tonight, when they asked me to come up here, they acknowledged me by name. They said Desley Gardner was going to be here. I had a name. I was given an identity to you all. Many of our ancestors did not have this. But the fact that Grigg was not only notable because of his rebellion, but to be put in name into these archival records, identified as a threat to their suppressive system. So now Grigg is another one who's using Buggy Peak, the Sherkley Mountains, as areas of resistance, rebellion. So we have him now being recorded, being arrested, but then unfortunately being acquitted. Could you imagine? An injustice system arrests a Negro man and cannot bring enough evidence to the jury for them to convict him of a crime? Because how can you convict somebody of having an idea? So I found that very interesting because in the 1790s, it's not like if we had acknowledged rights. So how come they couldn't just make up a story and put him into prison? So unfortunately, they couldn't keep him arrested for any reason. So he was acquitted by the jury, a white jury, and his plantation owner, John LaFoy, was not pleased with that. So he decided to pack up Grigg and put him on a boat to the Spanish Main. Now, Grigg, being a very resourceful man, somehow he was able to escape from that ship that was destined for the Spanish Main, which is Central America. Right? So they're going to ship him off, get rid of him so he can't disturb the peace in Antigua any longer. Somehow he got off of that ship and ended up in Martinique, another French colony that is purporting these ideologies of liberty, equality, and fraternity. Am I not a man and a brother? And then Grigg, he could have stayed in Martinique and been with like-minded Negroes, but he decided to return to Antigua and free his fellow Antiguans. And that is just so powerful, the fact that he was able to gather resources, return here in Antigua in the 1790s, and put together a tactical team in the Sherkley Mountains. It's quite extraordinary to understand how hard it must have been, how much effort he must have put in, how much love he had for his fellow Antiguans to even consider them when he could have just gone on his way. He had already escaped Antigua, escaped the plantocracy. But he returned, and he was able to gather enough intel, enough men and women with him. But unfortunately, he was executed on the 1st of August, 1798. And we lost another great slave rebellion leader. However, it just encouraged more enslaved persons to continue to escape, continue to practice maroonage to the Sherkley Mountains or Buggy Peak. And I just want us to honor people like Grigg, Kwamano, especially when we think of Buggy Peak as a sacred place, a place of memory, because we have many around us. We know the tale of Stony Gut. We know the tale of Buggy Peak. One of our most important heritage sites the Antigua Naval Dockyard. It houses a space called Middle Ground. Now, this area was one of the first areas of maroonage, despite its very specific location. It was within a naval compound. Now, in the 1740s, you know that tale where they say that the Europeans were dying out from disease and the hot sun. So all the time they needed to replace that labor with African laborers. So not only were they replacing their laborers, they were also replacing the soldiers that were in the Navy. So in the 1740s, the British Navy spent the equivalent of 40 million pounds to purchase 12,000 enslaved Africans straight from Africa. At that time, that made the British Navy the largest slave owner in the Caribbean. And they called these enslaved persons the King's Negroes. It was under the Georgian period. King George called them the King Negroes. And these Negroes were varied from the age of 14, as young as 14, right down to late 80s. But these skilled Negroes, they developed something that we cherish now today in Antigua. We have a UNESCO World Heritage Site, our very first. And it's highlighted because of the very complex Georgian architecture that still stands 300 years later, and the humanistic values that were exchanged between the Europeans and the Africans that lived there. But a key part of the inscription that I find we gloss over is the fact that these Georgian buildings, they're very different from anything that's in the Caribbean and in the world, hence a UNESCO World Heritage Site. It's so different because, let's remember, now today we can go on YouTube and we can ask for any skill and we can get the information given to us. Our African ancestors, they weren't given tutorials by the Europeans on how to build, how to construct. They had the knowledge. These were intelligent, skilled persons. So they sought these skilled persons for a reason. So the architecture that we celebrate in the dockyard is a creolized form of Georgian architecture. It is not the Georgian buildings that we see when we go to London. They are an alchemized joint design that our African ancestors had the foresight to say, you can't build this big box in this hot climate. You have to add a wraparound veranda, a large sash window. You have to put in louvers inside to allow airflow. So the fact that they manipulated the materials, the resources given to them to produce this really great, intricate, different design that has now been celebrated internationally. It's not buildings that we see every day because, you know, they're pretty to look at. That's the blood, sweat, and tears of my ancestors that is still standing here 300 years later. A unique design that is known as the Antiguan vernacular. So much so that it crossed development into some of the buildings that we still see on St. Mary Street, Redcliffe Street. It's a unique style of architecture that was developed by our Afro-Antigans. So it's something that we need to celebrate, understand, and appreciate. So in understanding the development of the dockyard, African laborers was prominent. It wasn't just the British Navy of European soldiers. We also had the African militia that was established where African men were bearing arms, and they were the ones who protected Middle Ground. Very easy to understand. The Middle Ground is the entrance of English Harbour and Falmouth Harbour, the middle ground between that. They weren't very creative with the name, but it helps us to understand what they were protecting. So the area of Middle Ground now housed the African community, one of the first free African communities, because within the King's Negroes, they leased enslaved persons from other plantations. Free men just came and provided labor to the Navy. And then, of course, we had those enslaved persons that the Navy bought. So you had a complex collection of African persons of varying status and freedom, living in one community, being allowed to practice their traditions, and all they had to do was report to work in the dockyard in the morning. So now we have our first community, free community. And what is quite interesting is that one thing about the Antiguan plantocracy in the 18th century is they write down every complaint. So you had them now complaining that the naval officers in the dockyard must now be hung because they are allowing the free maroonage of our young and old black men through their labor force. So you leave the plantation here in St. John's and you head out to the dockyard area. And a sailor asks you, "Are you free?" "Yeah, I'm free." And then you end up either being a laborer or you end up on one of these ships as a sailmaker, a rigger, an artisan, one of those skills that you naturally possess. And you're able to somehow maybe end up over in Guadeloupe, Europe, England. It's just one of the other ways our ancestors were able to escape the hardships of slavery. So in studying all of this, I now had a better understanding of the complexities of my heritage and my culture. So much so now that I wanted to know more about these laborers. So one of the main stories that we share, because we also learn the history so we can adapt it to our interpretation and understanding of the site. Now we understand that 1740s, when the dockyard expanded, we lost the lives of 8 men. These men were breaking down that hill called Jumbi Hill, where now we have the dockyard. It was once a hill, and 120 slaves broke down that hill by hand. No excavator, no machinery, all by hand. 1744, these 8 men were there, and someone stored gunpowder in a tent. Now the tent wasn't as magnificent as what we had. It was wood and fabric. So imagine gunpowder igniting, causing an explosion. 8th of March, 1744, 8 men died. Billy, London, Jameso, Dick, Joe, Scipio, Jono, and Caramonte Quamano. These 8 men lost their lives. And how do I know these 8 men lost their lives? Because in the assembly records, they were reported for compensation by their 8 owners. So the chattel was being reclaimed because they lost them in labor in the British Navy's work. So these are some of the harsh realities now we have to face when we're trying to identify our ancestors, because we're not going to find their names placed down in beautiful birth certificates. The places that we find their names are written down as property. So now the King's Negroes, they had a more complex recording system. So now we have a recording system reporting on the name of the Negro, the skill set, if he was a blacksmith, an artisan, an architect, a carpenter, a sailmaker, if he could read, and they would say things like, yes, he can read in English. Cannot read yet because he's not a native English speaker, he's straight from Africa. Or his English has been improving, and he's being taught by such and such planter. So we see now a shift in the record scheme, where now that the Navy has their own records of African laborers, they're now providing us with over 700 names of continuous labor from the 1740s right down to 1823. One of the young boys was actually called Antigua. He was employed at age 14, and he went on to be a sailmaker. Another young man, Dick Ivy, he was employed in 1816 and 1817 in the dockyard. And it's funny because he was employed after slave trade was abolished in 1804. And if you were to capture a black person, if you were to capture them, after the slave trade, once they were on your ship, wherever you docked, you were supposed to set them free. Dick Ivy was one of those enslaved persons captured, and he was put into labor in the dockyard. He was a skilled sailmaker, and his act of rebellion was to cut off his arm so that he could not participate in forced labor. So Dick Ivy practiced his own rebellion against this complex system that the British Navy tried to create. So every year, we come here together, Emancipation Day, and we call out the names of our ancestors who went on before us, who suffered the harsh lifestyle of being enslaved. So I want to add names to that list. I want to connect us to those names on this list. So we can recognize Prince Class, Kwatu Taki, Tomboy, Hercules, but we can now add Dick Ivy, Antigua, Greg, Kwamano, Billy, London, James So, Dick Ivy, Caramanti Kwamano, Jono. We can add them to the list so that we know and identify. We understand their resistance. We provide recognition to their efforts so that we can live in a free, developed nation. And we also honor remembrance. Thank you all for being here tonight.
Let us give Ms. Gardner another round of applause. I am so happy to have had her here tonight, and I think that she is definitely going to be at the forefront of that movement. Thank you once again, Ms. Gardner.
Indeed, and I was thinking back. I had heard of Mama Africa and Papa Willie and Mary Prince and Mary Thomas, but I'd never heard of Komani, Greg, and Dick. No, I'd heard of those. Yeah, those were with King Court, but I'd never heard of the three, the young kid, 12 years old or 14 years old. So I'm learning something tonight, eh? We're all learning something tonight. And I must apologize to Desley Gardner because I hinted to my co-host, I said, when you call her up, you have to say some brief remarks. Make sure you stress brief remarks. And I forgot who we were talking about. She has so much history in her head, she could go on and on and on and on. Just the dockyard alone would fill up the whole evening. So I apologize, Miss Gardner, and I shan't do that again. But here we're trying to work with a clock. So that's why I tried to stress to her, say brief remarks. And folks, it's now time for the roll call, I believe. Some of the names that were mentioned, very timely, will draw your attention to the screen.
Yes, so we will now have the presentation of the 87 martyrs and revolutionaries who were leaders of the 1736 slave revolt in Antigua and Barbuda. We'll now have a video clip greeting from Dr. Damien Dublin of the Dominica Reparations Commission.
Greetings, brothers and sisters of Antigua. I am Dr. Damien Dublin, Chairman of the Dominica Reparations Committee. I wish to extend fraternal solidarity with the Antigua and Barbuda Support Commission on Reparations as you celebrate this significant day in the history of Black people, Emancipation Day. The activities that you have outlined indicate that some thought went into it as you seek to impact on various strata of the Antiguan society. Of significance to note is the presence of Ambassador Ireneo Namboka of the IDO group. This group has a very good relationship with the CARICOM Reparations Commission and is forging even deeper relationships with CARICOM on a whole. We sincerely hope that at the end of the activities, the Antiguan population will be more sensitized to the issues of reparations and join together with you in this struggle as we seek reparatory justice. In our region, reparatory justice is sought for native genocide against indigenous people, of which Dominica has a very thriving population, and also reparatory justice for enslaved Africans, the descendants. We have moved from slavery to emancipation to independence, and now the focus is on reparations. We fully believe this is a just and ethical struggle, and we just call on everybody to join this and help us as we together strive and put all our energies in one direction to achieve our objective. So once again, on behalf of all the people of Dominica, the indigenous Kalinago people, and the other citizens, we wish success on this very important and significant occasion.
We'll now have a performance by Fiola Jardine. Let us give her a round of applause as we welcome her to the stage.
Good evening, everyone. Please allow me to observe already established protocols. Do you feel the freedom in the breeze? In the shuffling of the leaves? Freedom come, freedom don't go, freedom stay, you are welcome. Sit at the table we've made for you. It is black and it is beautiful. Laid out on the cracks of our ancestors' backs, let's have a meal with all the fixings. Fix things. Repair the Africans broken. Stolen bodies, stolen languages, stolen resources, stolen light, stolen. Really, it's only a token of what we deserve. Perseverance through the ins and outs, ups and downs, sideways and back and forth. Our history is exhausting. Faces in the dirt, Homo sapiens treated like savages. You're part of the problem if you don't understand it. Men, women, and children of this earth, skin the color of earth, rich soil from where life grows. We are the beginning of birth. And it hurts that there are still many who don't see us as human. Don't see us as human, and constantly we're struggling for our rights and recognition. Kings and queens wearing frowns instead of crowns. So unnatural, anti-factual. Distractions from our regality. This is our reality, not to be taken casually. Flamboyantly caustic to our collective psyche. So fix it, repair it. We beg not asking for handouts, not asking for another man's lot. Justice demands payment in full for what was stolen, fees incurred from what was broken. This is part and parcel of emancipation, financial freedom. Let go the skirt hem of our nations. It's not all fun and games in the sun, sea, and sand. Mom and pops broke the precious, and now their kids must pay the damages. It's only fit. The apology and the money go hand in hand. Every generation, grand after grand after grand after grand. The billions and billions of debt ignored. Take time to recall the blood that was poured. Soak up the rays. Play in the waves. Wiggle your toes in the grains, but heed the freedom in the breeze. Mind the whispers of the leaves. Freedom come. Freedom don't go. Freedom stay. You are welcome. Thank you.
Our ancestors are honored tonight.
Indeed. Indeed. And I cast my mind back to when I was a youngster in school studying history. And it would have been so much more interesting and exciting to learn about reparatory justice, to learn about reparations. But in my day, we didn't even know that word. It didn't even exist and that's over 40 years ago, Tavia. So we didn't know anything about that, and so we wrote about Hernando Cortez and Francisco Pizarro and Drake and all of these scoundrels. At that time, we didn't even consider them scoundrels. We were considering them heroes. They came and discovered 1492. Columbus sailed the ocean blue, and we venerated Columbus instead of treating him like the villain of history that he really was. Christopher Columbus is a... No, you're leaving out damn. You're leaving out damn. You have to say damn. Christopher Columbus is a... Indeed. In fact, I had one of the questions was, write something about Christopher Columbus and his discoveries and all of that. And I started writing the foolishness that you learn from first form, second form, third form, fourth form. The same thing, what a great man he was and all of that. But I had a teacher named John Mathurin and another teacher named Bacchanal Warner, Bernard Warner. And he said, don't write that stuff. Don't write that stuff. You have to write the truth. And you have to write that Columbus set in motion this whole notion that you can enslave the indigenous people. In fact, he took back a bunch of them to England with him after his first voyage, saying how docile they was and how this is part of the richness to be found in the Indies. Christopher Columbus is a... That's what's up.
We are now approaching the WatchNight hour, the reason we are here tonight. And so I want to invite us to stand as we have the Negro anthem played, as we prepare to usher in emancipation. Please stand.
Sing a song, lift every voice and sing till earth and heaven ring, ring with the harmonies of liberty. Let all rejoicing rise high as the listening skies. Let it resound loud as the rolling sea. Sing a song full of the faith that the dark past has taught us. Sing a song full of the hope that the present has brought us. Facing the rising sun, the far new day begun. Let us march on till victory is won. Stony the road we trod, bitter the chastening rod, felt in the days when hope unborn had died. Yet with a steady beat, if not on weary feet, come to the place for which our fathers sighed. We have come over a way that with tears has been watered. We have come treading a path through the blood of the slaughtered. Out from the gloomy past, till now we stand at last, where the white gleam of our bright star is cast. God of our weary years, God of our silent tears, Thou who hast brought us thus far on the way, Thou who hast by Thy might led us into the light, keep us forever in the path we pray.
We now have the Iron Band coming through. It's freedom! Put your hands together. It's Emancipation Day. And you are here.
The Police Iron Band. You know, it's funny. The irony of it all is that back in the day, police used to lock up people for playing iron band music because it was considered vagabond music. And now we have the police themselves playing iron band music. The irony is not lost on us.
We have more entertainment for you. We're going to invite the Kari on stage. Let us put our hands together. Is the Kari here?
King Zakari. King Zakari. All right. It doesn't appear as though he's here. All right, let's move on.
We'll now move on to another video greeting from Earl Bosque from St. Lucia of the St. Lucia Reparations Commission.
The Antigua. The St. Lucia National Reparations Committee congratulates the Antigua and Barbuda Reparations Support Commission for hosting yet another successful Emancipation Day observance in Antigua and Barbuda. Historically, these celebrations came as a result of all of us growing across the Caribbean, knowing the 1st of August to be a holiday called Emancipation Day, when the enslaved in the British Empire was supposed to have been freed after the supposed abolition of slavery on the 1st of August in 1834. However, it turns out that emancipation meant different things to those who designated it and those to whom it was meant, from the standpoint that even though they were supposedly free, the supposedly freed slaves still had to give between 4 and 6 years of free labor to their former masters, and their freedom was conditional on giving that labor. That period led to indentureship 6 years later, and it is now very clear that the period of apprenticeship was only a period to allow the colonials to find new ways to replace. Therefore, Emancipation Day observances today tend to draw on the intrinsic relationship between slavery, emancipation, apprenticeship, and indentureship, all of which add up to the reason why we have to continue the fight for reparations, for slavery, and for native genocide without leaving out our first people in all of our territories. So once again, congratulations to the Antigua and Barbuda Reparations Support Commission and to your chair, our dear friend, who, as we know, has always stood up front. Chairman Dobrin, all the best to you as well, and all of the remaining members of the Antigua-Barbuda Reparations Support Commission from the St. Lucia National Reparations Committee. Thank you.
We'll also now have a quick greeting from Colin John Jenkins as well, as he brings emancipation greetings to us. Following right after, we will have a performance by Richie Francis.
Good evening. I am Colin John Jenkins. As we celebrate Emancipation 2022, let us remember that the heralding of emancipation on August the 1st must not be forgotten, for it represents deep-rooted experiences that has shaped and transformed the lives of millions of Africans in the diaspora and in the Caribbean in particular. Antigua and Barbuda, celebrating Emancipation 2022.
Thank you. We'll now invite Richie Francis to the stage. Let us put our hands together as we welcome him.
Richie Francis, I think I see him coming. One of my favorite Calypsonians, a great writer and a great performer. Welcome Richie Francis to the stage, folks.
Good evening. True story. Look here, friends, in the days of old, Britain ruled Antigua, was colonialism untold, led by a governor. He was the ultimate in law, no one could cross his path. As for we, the poor Antiguans, he had a wooden heart. It was a place where British lords invested their money to get profits like peas from Waterloo while we suffered in misery. But today like things get worse, the leaders change. It looks like if the system cursed, things rearrange. Where Papa Bird brought peace to all, red, black and white. Today my friends, robbery prevails in broad daylight. So now we facing sexual abuse, mothers and fathers behaving loose. Oh Antigua, we must change our behavior. What's the answer? We must change our behavior. You hear? La da da do, la de la do. Look here, friends, in the days of old, Britain treat us badly. Made we plant cotton and sugar cane to fill their treasury. And for over a whole century, they showed us no mercy. So thank the Lord for Papa Bird, who set we country free. So we gain we independence from British overlords. And as free Antiguans, we took up the sword and cut all of them slave records. But today, like slavery days, they coming back. Criminals, they on the attack, and the police slack. When policemen and all in crime is real abuse. Sad to say some policemen behaving loose. Violent crime plague in Antigua, just like this pandemic corona. Oh Antigua, we must change our behavior. What's the answer? We must change our behavior. You hear? La da da do, la de la do. When we were a crown colony, this is no mama guy. Yes, Britain and she family, they suck we orange dry. My people didn't own a thing, not even we own drum. We have to beg the English king for a little sip of rum. Everything, plate, spoon, saucer and cup, came out of Great Britain. Not even the sea sand, the beach and the land was owned by an Antiguan. So when we got independence, with pride we were endowed to set up our own defense. We felt so proud. But today we cannot trust we own security, because they thieving just like everybody. And within the public service, corruption is the main interest. Oh Antigua, we must change our behavior. Look in the mirror, we must change our behavior. You hear? La da da do, la de la do. So my friends, this my calypso is to tell all Antigans that Great Britain and Babylon who lived out in submission. You must know that their ruling style was like criminals gone wild. Any crime you could imagine, Britain was committing. From murder to arson, yes brother, Britain spread the terror. It was brute force and death without any regret. They led my ancestors to death. So the same crime that Great Britain and them committed, today we have to fight like hell, man, to get rid. Instead of Great Britain and them exploitation, today is we own criminals and corruption. We parliamentarian in racket, and bad police adding to it. Oh Antigua, our ancestors demands better. For our future, we must change our behavior. You hear? Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen.
Good stuff from Richie Francis. What a powerful message. We must change our behavior. Folks, I draw your attention to the monitor. We're going to be paying tribute to King Franchi. He would have been here tonight, but he has gone on to be with the ancestors, and we'll pay homage to him and give a listen and a look.
Like the Anasazi could not maintain their complex society in the face of rapid environmental changes.
In these emancipation times, African people look towards complete and total emancipation, renewing our quest for reparations and repatriation. All praise His Imperial Majesty Haile Selassie I. Jah Rastafari.
We're calling on King Sagai Fu. He'll say a few words, and keep looking at the monitor even as the king is paying his tribute to King Franchi.
Holy man of all I Selassie, Jah Rastafari. All protocol observe. My vice gone. But at least King Franchi is our elder. He stood with us until he's gone now. So we're going to continue the fight. We're going to keep alive, hope alive, emancipation. Emancipation to me means after 500 years of slavery, that the black man, we are here strong. We're going to continue fight. I am glad to see that the Rastafari movement has been recognized by the government and the Repatriation Committee for our support and our endeavor. I would like to say, repatriation to me is after the Berlin Conference, the war-torn city of Europe in Germany, when General Bismarck decided on the European nation to say, let us take Africa. They took Africa for themselves and divided up Africa among them. So we had the French Africa, Belgium Africa, Dutch Africa. We were all engulfed in slavery, fighting our colonial masters. But give thanks that we have gone over 500 years, and now is our time for repatriation and reparation. Now I give thanks that society has now becoming to understand the significance of the Rastaman, because we are the fighters. We are down on the front line. Once upon a time, they never respected us as a people. But now, we become a people. And I'm glad for that. I'm here over 53 years on the front line. We've been through many suffering, but I have to give thanks to time. Time has proved everything. So, as being this year, I'm celebrating my 70th birthday. Next month, on the 26th of August, going to make me 70. I'm on this road for 53 years non-stop, fighting against all of the colonial masters and all of the puppet governments. And I must give compliments to what is due to a person. The Prime Minister Gladstone throughout the entire Caribbean is one of the most powerful leaders in recognizing the value of the Rastaman, because we've been fighting for the rights of our herd. And I hope that a lot of people, black people, understand the significance of the Rastaman. We are the frontline soldiers, and we brought the struggle to where it is. Man like King Frankai was a very mentor to me, because sometimes when we are about to get upset, he said, take it easy. So I admire him, I work with him over the years. And I'm saying, we're going to continue. Give thanks for the Rastafari movements. I hope that this would mean a lot of significance to Rasta people to know that we have a role to play in society. I want to see we develop in Antigua, because me neither ALP nor UPP. Meaning none of them. Me want to see real African leaders respecting the dignity of our struggle. Remember our struggle over 500 years. And now time come to embrace all of the people. Not some IUPP that are still red, white, and blue. Me upon that. Me am a liberator. We come for the rights of our people, Antigua people. Woman no love go on in Antigua. Me no love to see the condemnation of all sorts of people come from all over. And then our Antiguan have always behind suffer, because light no darkness will beseech thee. The more light you be and the more foreign you be, you get better privilege in Antigua. I want to sit at the top.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. We're going to close the evening off with a performance from one of my favorite reggae singers. Let us welcome Zambai to the stage. One of our own, one of our best. Take it away. Come on, let's bring Zambai to the stage with some love.
Greetings, greetings. You know, it gives me great pleasure to see, such a great turnout tonight to pay homage to the ancestors on whose shoulders we stand. This song is entitled Kings and Queens. It's a reminder of who we are. Turn it up, man. Turn it up. Turn it up.
Oh, my kings and queens, don't let them define you. I am here to remind you, you're nothing that they say you are. Oh, my kings and queens, don't let them confine you, lock you in a box with a label. You're nothing that they say you are. You're more than just a name or social number on the security exchange. You're more than flesh and blood. You're more than flesh and blood. Yes. You're a highly spiritual being, a unique expression of infinite eternal awareness, a divine creation, a special edition, nothing less, no. So you need no validation from them. Believe you me, not an ounce from them. They're nothing but blights and parasites and vampires trying to harness your energy to fuel the evil machinery. Let them not dictate to you regardless, nor bow down to them to impress. As a matter of fact, they should bow down to you and honor your very presence. You're the mothers and fathers, the root of their very existence. The opinion of you is not your reality. Killers of dreams and self-esteem them be. Infiltrators of human psyche, manipulating thoughts and frequency. Keep far from them company, far away from them company. And I won't fail to mention, wicked is their intention. To their deceptive ways, please pay attention. Kings and queens, please pay attention. Never be seduced by their dirty death style. Them style is no substitute for substance.
From them style, they keep your distance. Oh, keep your distance. Dare to be different because you are. I said dare to be different because you are. Words from the wise I share with you. Know thyself and to thyself be true. Oh, my kings and queens, don't let them define you. I am here to remind you, you're nothing that they say you are. Oh, my kings and queens, oh yes. Don't let them confine you, lock you in a box with a label. You're nothing that they say you are. No exercise your uniqueness without any kind of fear, I say. And let me add, be bold with it, yes. I say be bold with it, yes, yes. They conforming rule, I say break it. You see a chance out there, I say take it. Stand up and stand out, though sometimes you may have to stand alone. It takes guts to go against the norm. Be of good courage and you will weather the storm. Weather the storm. I say you will weather the storm. Oh yes, oh yes. Not because everyone is doing it means you have to do it too. No, connect with that God code inside of you. Know to yourself you have value. Many will call you crazy, but pay them no mind mark you. It's not your fault they don't recognize genius. With blinders limited is their scope. They can't see your globe within us. No, see them for who they are. Yes, no make them hack into your system. Infect you with them virus, take you make victim. No, protect your head, your heart, your mind at all times. Oh, my kings and queens, don't let them define.
I want to say hands in here, man. Come on.
I am here to remind you, you're nothing that they
sing it with me. Oh, kings and queens.
Oh, my kings and queens,
don't let them define you.
Don't let them confine you.
Don't let them confine you.
Lock you in a box,
lock you in a box with them.
You're nothing that they say you are. Oh, my kings and queens, don't let them define you. I am here to remind you, you're nothing that they say you are. Oh, my kings and queens, don't let them confine you. Lock you in a box with a label. You're nothing that they say you are.
Thank you. One love.
Thank you so much. Put your hands together, ladies and gentlemen. Tavia, we have come to the end of another beautiful Emancipation Watch Night event. And absolutely enjoyable, eh, Tavia? Absolutely enjoyable. So we want to take this opportunity to wish everybody happy Emancipation Day.
Emancipation Day. And we want to thank every single one of you and your ancestors for coming out tonight. And I want you to all leave here safely with the grace of the protection of the Creator before you, above, beneath, and behind you. And as you leave here, take to heart everything that you have heard, everything that you have been taught, and let it reshape and redefine who and what you are. We are kings and queens, Zambai, spoken from a true king himself. And all of the performers, everyone who contributed to tonight's proceedings, our chairperson, thank you so much, Dobrin, and all of Mamba Liverpool, the brain behind all of what we experienced tonight, everyone that's a member of the reparations committee. I don't remember everybody's name, but you know who you are. And we want to thank you. Let us continue to honor our legacy and do ourselves proud as we represent our culture going forward. And don't let next year be the next time we see you. This movement is a daily one. Emancipation is a daily exercise. So continue.
Indeed, and don't forget the Emancipation breakfast down at the Green Bay Moravian Church. I know Dorbin is going to be there. Every year he's there. Mamba's going to be there. Tavia, I don't know if she has the energy to do it tonight. I am going to be there. We're going down to Green Bay Moravian Church for the Emancipation breakfast, 7 o'clock in the morning. And I especially asked the tech guy over there to pull up Strength and Power. That's going to take us home. Good night, everybody. Happy Emancipation Day. I love you and look forward to seeing you again this time next year.